Welcome to the Kalamopod, the one and only podcast on themes in classical Islamic theology, hosted by me, Hannah Erlbein. Ardent listeners of the Kalamopod will know that there was certainly no shortage of problems and questions for Islamic theologians to discuss. Some of the questions they puzzled their heads over took them right back to the very beginnings of Islam in 7th century Arabia, when Muhammad first proclaimed his prophethood. One such question was how Muhammad's contemporaries and followers actually knew that he was a genuine prophet. This was a good question to ask, as the theologians were of course well aware that reports about the times of the emergence of Islam spoke of a number of other individuals besides Muhammad who also claimed to be prophets. The followers of Muhammad and Muhammad himself did evidently not accept these claims to prophethood on the part of certain competitors. So how is it then, the theologians came to ask, that the early Muslims could be certain that Muhammad was a genuine prophet? This question seemed even more pressing, since the Quran itself reports that many contemporaries of Muhammad, who did not accept his prophethood, accused him of being mad or of fabricating the Quran while claiming he received a revelation from God. They also suspected Muhammad of being nothing more than a poet, or of being a magician who bewitched his audience with the recitation of the Quran. So the theologians knew of these accusations, but they also knew that the Quran bore witness to Muhammad's disappointment about the doubts that he was a true prophet sent by God. The Quran itself emphatically rejected these accusations and confirmed that Muhammad was neither mad nor a magician, nor a poet, but a noble messenger, as it says in Quran 69:40. Several decades later, when the Islamic Empire had considerably expanded and when Muslims came into contact with other faiths, the same question about the veracity of Muhammad's claims to prophethood surfaced again. This is when Islamic theologians began to tackle the problem systematically. Not only did they have to defend their conviction that Muhammad was a true prophet to adherents of other faiths, but they also wanted to do justice to the principle which, as ardent listeners of the Kalamopod know, was the basis of the science of Kalam, namely that religious tenets required investigation and a rational, reason-based foundation. So, simply to say that one believed Muhammad to be God's true prophet was not enough for the theologians. They aspired to more, and this meant presenting rational arguments in defense of this belief. The theologians soon found an answer to their conundrum. A true prophet, they asserted, is vindicated by miracles, by something that goes against the normal course of things and strikes humans as so extraordinary that the conclusion forces itself upon them that this must be a miracle from God. The theologians could point to the Quran as the basis of their assertion that prophets are vindicated by miracles. The Quran contains a plenitude of stories of other prophets coming before Muhammad and their miracles. For example, there is the story of the prophet Moses, who left Pharaoh and his magicians speechless when he threw his staff onto the ground and it turned miraculously into a serpent. Then there is the story of another prophet, Jesus, who also left his audience speechless when he proclaimed his prophethood to them while still being a baby. So if all prophets were vindicated by a miracle, the theologians asked, what was then the miracle that vindicated Muhammad? And that's what we will look at in today's episode of the Kalamopod. The answer given to this question by the theologians took its starting point in an interesting observation about the Quran. In the face of all the accusations made against Muhammad by his doubting contemporaries, the theologians observed that the Quran presented a rather intriguing retort. It ordered Muhammad to challenge his opponents to produce something like the Quran, if they were so certain that it was a mere fabrication and did not come from God. They were challenged to produce only a short passage and to seek the help of whoever they could turn to. The Quranic verses which contained this challenge became known as the challenge verses, in Arabic, ayat at-tahaddi. There are a number of them in the Quran, but here's only one example. In Quran 2:23-24, we read, and I'm quoting, "If you are in doubt concerning what we sent down to our servant Muhammad, then produce a surah, and that is a chapter, the like of it, and call upon your witnesses apart from God if you are truthful." From the Quranic perspective, it was clear right from the start that the opponents would fail to meet this challenge. The Quran declares confidently in Quran 17:88 that not even the combined forces of humans and the jinn, these being supernatural spirit-like creatures, would master this challenge. Truly, if humankind and the jinn assemble to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like of it, even if some of them helped others. And in Quran 2:24, the Quran adds to its insistence that its challenge will not be met, that the doubters of the Quran's divine origin should fear a fate in eternal hellfire. And if you do not produce one surah, and you never will, then fear hellfire, whose fuel is humans and stones, prepared for unbelievers. It is, for obvious reasons, as of now, unfortunately impossible for us to travel back in time and investigate whether the Quranic challenge was ever met. Historical sources dating back to the first few centuries of Islam tell us that there were some individuals who thought themselves capable of meeting the challenge and produced the occasional verse imitating the Quran. But if we want to believe the Islamic theologians, no one ever succeeded in producing what the challenge verses asked for, neither in Muhammad's lifetime nor thereafter. The conviction that the Quran remained inimitable prompted the theologians to argue that a divine miracle was at work. Now, you might wonder what exactly the Quran actually asked for in its challenge verses. After all, it simply demanded Muhammad's opponents to, quote, produce a surah the like of it. But what exactly does this mean? In order to meet a challenge, the terms of the challenge have to be clear. Well, this is the very same question the theologians asked, and they found an answer. They asserted that the challenge referred to the Quran's wonderful quality of eloquence, to its beauty of words, its clarity of expression, as well as its wonderful arrangement and structure. You see, the theologians, like all Muslims even nowadays, had a special admiration for the language of the Quran. So the theologians asserted that Muhammad's opponents were challenged to produce something that matched the amazing eloquence of the Quran. But Muhammad's opponents, we are told, did not succeed. It was evident that a miracle was taking place, one 9th century theologian by the name of Jahiz argued in a work entitled Proofs of Prophethood, or Hujjaj an-Nubuwah, since the pagan Arabs, Muhammad's first audience, were known for their mastery of eloquence, and it should have been easy for them to meet the challenge. They also had good reasons for attempting to disprove Muhammad's claims to prophethood. So their failure to produce verses which got even close to the amazing eloquence of the Quran, Jahiz argued, proved beyond doubt that the Quran was not a mere human fabrication, but that it had a divine origin. The Quran was an eloquent, inimitable miracle, which was outside human capabilities. God had given this miracle to his prophet as a sign of his veracity. Muhammad's opponents, for their part, were stubborn in their refusal to accept the miraculous nature of the Quran. But this was not the only way in which the theologians interpreted the miraculous nature of the Quran. A contemporary of Jahiz, the theologian Nadam, is reported to have offered a different interpretation. For him, too, the Quran was a masterful piece of eloquence, but he did not think that it was, principally, outside of human capacity to produce something that matched it. Nadam explained the failure of Muhammad's opponents to meet the challenge as the result of divine intervention. God intervened and made sure that Muhammad's opponents would forget all their skills and knowledge of beautiful, eloquent speech. This was the true miracle, according to Nadam. But if the Arabs were left alone, Nadam is reported to have said, they would have been able to compose pieces like those of the Quran. Historically speaking, Nadam's theory was much less successful than that proposed by Jahiz. Generations of theologians were more drawn to seeing the Quran itself as a divine miracle, as something humans could not produce, rather than positing that God rendered otherwise very masterful individuals incapable. But the theologians had yet other ideas of what made the Quran a miracle. Some of them suggested that the miracle wasn't just the structure, rhetoric, or language of the Quran, but also its contents, such as the knowledge it contained of past people and epochs, as well as future events, which, they claimed, a human being could not possibly possess. This pointed, in their view, without doubt, to the divine origins of the Quran, and thereby proved that Muhammad's claims to prophethood were true. It is little surprising that the question of how Muhammad's prophethood could be proven has preoccupied Muslims till the present day. And some have taken the classical doctrine that the Quran itself is a miracle because of its unmatched eloquence into a new direction. In the face of the rise of modern science, some Muslim thinkers came to argue that the miraculous nature of the Quran lies in its foretelling of scientific facts, which were discovered only several centuries later. What the proponents of this view attempt to do is to transport the miracle of the Quran from 7th century Arabia into modernity. In their view, this requires shifting one's focus from eloquence to science, in the hope that a modern-day audience, very different from Muhammad's first audience, might recognize the miracle. You might want to decide for yourself which, or if any, of these different views about what constitutes the miraculous nature of the Quran you find convincing. But in any case, the great importance which Muslim theologians and thinkers have attached to this doctrine since Muhammad first proclaimed his prophethood until the present day is more than evident. And since Islamic theologians attached such importance to the doctrine that the Quran was a miracle, it comes as little surprise that they would frequently find themselves involved in heated debates with Christian, Jewish, Zoroastrian, and other theologians. There was no shortage of disagreement about central religious dogmas, but a lot of room for interreligious polemics. But this story has to wait till the next episode of the Kalamopod, the one and only podcast on themes in classical Islamic theology, hosted by Hannah Alban. Thanks for listening, and hear you soon.